Okay, it finally ended. I still don't know how to make this shorter, but it's a skill issue. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for coming to a new episode of the Alignment Sessions. We'll wait a couple of minutes for more people to join. We started a little late, a few minutes late than usual. But as every Monday, we will be speaking about the latest updates on Aligned in terms of the product and engineering, a few interesting things that we saw in the ecosystem and in the space. And in this case in specific, I came to New York last week for a conference called StableCon. I think it was the first time they were hosting it. And I will be sharing a few things I saw from there that I think are worth mentioning and that can be related with Aligned. It's going to be a very similar episode to the last one. When we have more exciting stuff to share, I think we will do more like demos or explain more in detail some interesting things. But yeah, we make progress every single week with the technology and everything. So things are very incremental. So if you're joining every single week, you might you're going to see that things are progressing and moving forward. But we don't have anything exciting this week to share in detail. So let's wait one more minute and we can start. Are you guys in the office?
I am,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, cool. Diego and Mauro in Buenos Aires, and I'm in New York. And we don't have Boris this week. We are sending him a big hello. Then he's sick this week, so hopefully he will be back soon. And for the next Monday live stream.
Yeah. Oddly enough, it's meteorological winter in Buenos Aires, but temperature is around 17 degrees.
And I think it's similar to the temperature I have now in New York, and it's spring here.
Yeah.
Very weird. Yeah, the weather has been very, very weird the last year. Christmas was actually pretty cold.
Yeah, they say winter is going to be pretty hot, so
Okay, I think we have over 130 people. We can start. Okay. Um, okay. So thank you everyone for joining again. Um, we are hosting the 16th version of the Lightman session. I think we have been very consistent and doing this every single Monday. Maybe a few weeks we changed the date, but the whole idea is for us to have a space each week where we can explain what things we did last week, if we have any news, share a few thoughts on what's going on in the ecosystem, and yeah, be consistent with this so everyone that is part of the community and wants to be updated, they have a space to get all the information they need and they can see our beautiful faces, that we don't sleep much and things are moving forward. So what we will do is the following. We'll start with Mauro with the usual engineering update. Maybe we will ask some questions to Mauro with Diego to explain something in more detail. And the idea is to also have a conversation around the updates, so people who are not technical can also start getting an idea of where is the project and what stuff are important right now in engineering. And as usual, you should have in a few hours or minutes a blog with a detailed engineering update every single week. You can see everything like a summary of what happened in the engineering team. Everything's open source, literally everything. So for those who are technical and curious, they can go into a repo and see the things specific. And of course, they can test the system by using the testnet. So Mauro, do you want to start?
So yes, if you are testing the PRs, it's always welcome. You can comment them and approve them. Like your approval won't matter a lot in terms of technical stuff because nobody outside from the organization can really approve a PR, but you can take a look and test them and give feedback. Anyways, so last week we closed things that were open. You may remember us talking for a couple of weeks already about this feature to do proof aggregation of aggregated proofs that increases the throughput of the system. That's already done. We have it on, yeah, we are using it on testnet already. It's March, it's live. With that, we can do batches of aggregations of around 4,000 proofs. The next limitation is probably the DA. We can do an upgrade later to do bigger batches. I don't think it's worth it right now because at that point the price difference is not that high. Like we can just do another batch this time, but in the future we might consider doing some upgrade to do bigger batches. And the example of the aggregation mode is already there, like you can check it. It's right now it's a little bit hidden. We will publish it in the documentation, but if you go to examples and you go to L2, you have a demo of what an L2 will look like when working with a line. It's a toy example just for people to learn and understand. If you want to see something more real, we also have like the iterx iteration with a line that is actually an L2, a fully L2, but of course that might require you guys to know a little bit more of everything. But both things are working. Yes, then we are doing some minor upgrades all around. We are optimizing a little bit some pieces of the aggregator. There were some little things in the code that made it slower than what it should be, but not much, but just a little bit. We were like testing it with big throughputs, and we realized there were some bottlenecks. we are doing some simplifications on the code, in particular of like the non-paying addresses. Like if you use a line on testnet, you might have realized that you don't actually have to pay. You can pay like in mainnet, but it's optional. So if you don't have a wallet set up, you can quickly start testing it. And that had like its own logic in the system, and it was kind of duplicated with the mine flow. So we consolidated it all in one flow, because we noticed that might lead to issues. Yeah, some other quality of life stuff. Probably the things that we will manage today is the pump of Shinark or NARC that has been around for a little bit, so you can use the latest 0.12 version. That's probably it. I think maybe there is some minor thing that I'm forgetting, but if there is something else, it's very minor. So that give us an overview of the status. I don't know if you have any questions.
The only thing I would reinforce is that the demo and this end-to-end integration with Aligned and Ethrex is very important. We shared in Thursday or Friday, I think, a demo, right? In Twitter. So if anyone wants to check it out, there's a video explaining and showing an end-to-end integration of Ethrex, L2, and Aligned. So idea in the future is everyone should be able to quickly launch their L2 and send to Aligned the proofs to get verified today using both fast mode and derivation mode. In the future, people will be able to choose one service or the other depending on their needs. And yeah, that's moving really fast. I think it's going to be I think it's an important milestone because it's the first L2 stack that works on top of Aligned, and it's the one we're going to focus for our rollup as a service. So it's a very important integration, and I think a very important milestone for both Ethrex and Aligned. Hopefully, in the future, when things evolve even more, we will be able to do some benchmarks and show more the cost behind everything that is running when you want to launch your own L2. Yeah, and the idea for everything is to be easily customizable for developers. So depending on the type of project, they will have a different type of amount of proofs or a time for settlement. That changes a lot with each project. I don't know, Mauro, if you have any comments on that, but we have been discussing that internally. Depending on what you need, you will have different time preference for settling the proofs.
Yes, that's right. Like we are checking with the Hydrox team and other people what are their needs. Uh, they, in particular, they don't need to settle that fast, but that those things can be adapted. Leaving that aside, like the the CK proofs, like the L2 is also working with the TDX proof. Is not very related to Align because we might do the TDX verification in the fast mode at some point, but leaving that aside, it does some extra security and some first line of fast finality. So you get like the first proof by the sequencer and then like the second proof later.
It is important for the rollups that will be running on top of Align. It's not directly related with the product that we already have live, but it's an important feature for them.
So yeah,
Yeah, people will be able.
multi-verification is on the way. I think like the
Yeah,
next thing the team is working on is base sequencing.
sequencing.
And that's probably where you will have more alternatives. I think that there are many ways to decide how do you want to sequence your L2. from centralized, and even base has a lot of variants. It's not like you say base and it's all the same. You can do it in many ways. Um, so yeah, that will have some options, and we will see what users prefer.
Exactly. Dio, you wanted to say something?
No, no, no. If I don't know if we are done then with the engineering topics and you want to jump onto some other news.
Yeah, I think that that covers everything. The only thing I would add is that these things take time, primarily because we are not experts uh, on animations and this type of videos, but we know that for many people that are interested in Aligned, it's not easy to understand uh, how some things are integrated and how things work. So we're working a lot on building content around this. So it's not only useful for people in our community, but also for people that in the future we want to use this tech. So that requires documentation and also content. We're in an era where content is very important. So we're aware of that and we're working a lot on it. Hopefully we'll have more videos to show. We're working one talking about the CK, how CKVMs work, but in the future we'll have one explaining how CK rollups work on top of Aligned. Um, and I think we will explain even more the features of all of these rollups and how they play out, why they're important. So it's useful for developers and also for people in our community that want to understand why we're doing all of this. I think that's the only thing I would add to the engineering update. That all of these things come with content to explain why they're important and how they work. Um, all yours, Theo, if you want to explain the CK Sync thing.
Yeah, no, it's been a while because I was in New York, then RJ went there and I came back. So there have been like some various news on the CKVM front. Today, CK Sync, of course, released their new version of Bujum 2.0, which is now Airbender. It is a RISC-V VM. This shows that almost everybody is converging towards RISC-V CKVMs. It's something that we saw since the beginning with the Cairo VM. We knew that these VMs would be the way to go forward, especially when you have something like a RISC-V VM. Okay, you understand everything how it works, and it's easier than to change things because you just have to change like the programs you're running on top of the VM, but the VM stays the same, which is different from the case where people kind of build their own custom VM and then something changes, for example, in Ethereum or whatever, and then you have to start like rewriting circuits. So the less we have to touch the circuit part, the better. Of course, there are like some reasons why you would have your specialized VM, which is the case of Starknet or Maiden, because that way they can get like better performance. But well, CK Sync had their custom proof system, everything, but now they decided to go like the same way as the others. It's interesting because we've also seen these VMs getting like more powerful. If you look at ETH proofs, right now you can generate proofs for Ethereum blocks as low as 2 cents per proof. So that shows that the proving cost is like negligible. You can generate for one block for just 2 cents, 3 cents. Uh, of course, verification costs remain higher. That's why it makes sense to have aligned, um, because the settlement cost is higher. You have to verify the proof on top of the EVM. So having, of course, the aggregation service and the fast mode makes a lot of sense. Another important thing was that Starkware also released um, the new version of Stu, which is like considerably faster than the original prover. Of course, I don't know the final numbers, but it looks like super promising. Starboard has done an amazing job, always like innovating on the front of proof systems. They invented Starks. They co-invented Circle Starks with a team from Polygon, and it seems it's going like really, really fast. And another thing that was really groundbreaking, it was like 2 weeks ago, I think, but super interesting, has to do with this idea of jagged polynomial commitment schemes released by Succinct, which has allowed them to significantly reduce proving times. Basically, what they did was like taking like some previous work on sparse polynomial commitment schemes, where basically you have a function that has lots of zeros, okay, and you want to avoid paying the cost for having those zeros. So if you can like kind of compress and avoid sending all the zeros, you get a significant performance boost, okay? Because that's one of the main bottlenecks you have in CKVMs. So they took like some ideas that were, for example, present in um, Twist and Shout and in Jolt, okay, that work with sparse polynomials, but they kind of tweaked like some things and found like uh, very interesting ways to be able to evaluate those functions real efficiently. And so they released this news that they were able to prove right now Ethereum blocks in under 12 seconds. At least 93% of them could be proven in that time. Of course, we have a challenge that if blocks get bigger, then of course proving times will go up again. But I think we are on the right track. I think we are going to release at some point some discussion on a more technical discussion on that topic. I think it's like super interesting because basically it allows you like to zip like all the tables and combine them into just one big polynomial and not like several different polynomials. Um, but
And
the
why
other
having several different polynomials is more inefficient than only one? It's because you need to check with only one, right?
that is to say, you have to commit to more polynomials, okay, and commitments in general are like expensive. You have to do a lot of hashing, everything. If you could do just one polynomial commitment, it would be like more efficient. Of course, the problem is like how do you compress the table and not lose like the original information? That's something that was discussed in previous papers, and then they took it like one step forward. Um, and yeah, that way, the problem is in general for proof systems to be efficient and everything, you need the table to have a length that is a power of 2. So the problem is, in general, your program runs up to a certain point, but then you need to somehow pad the table with lots of zeros. And that is an extra cost for you. And you could do much better if you could somehow like take all the columns, stack them one below the other, and just commit to one single polynomial. The amount of information, the number of hashes you have to do to commit everything is simpler. It makes it easier for recursion also. Of course, this was done for their proof system using Baby Bear, but I don't think there is any limitation, for example, to use it together with binary fields, which already have a very nice thing that they can pack different columns into one column. But now they have this thing that they don't even have to pad because they can just stack columns one below the other. So I don't know. I'd like to see um, this implemented and tried with CKVM that uses Venius. I think it can be like really, really fast. But it's good that we got like a lot of collaboration from different teams because we are all building open source and I think sharing knowledge. I think that has allowed us to progress like really fast. That is something that, at least for us, it was always important. That's why we always build open source, because really you get to the optimum much faster. If each of us had like tried to gatekeep their technology, their discoveries from the others, we wouldn't be at this point where proving is getting like really cheap. And that's why we have to continue like building things to reduce the cost of verification further, and also make it very easy to launch your CK rollup. I think we have a very clear idea of where CK rollups are going and where they are going to be used, and that's why we consider like essential to be able to launch your rollup with just one click. I think that's
Yeah,
one of the great goals.
I think we have a great advantage that we don't have technical debt with all of this because we already designed it knowing. I think we have been very repetitive with this since the beginning. We already decided everything knowing that we believe CKVMs are the future, um, and we are going to focus primarily on offering the best experience for those products. That's especially important in the rollup, right? And also evaluation mode. But that being said, because we know that they're the future and they're going to be really important, we also need to support multi-proofs. That's why we have the rollups with TDX is important. Um, all of these technologies is new, it's moving really fast, but at the same time, security still needs to be something considered. So minimizing those risks by offering developers alternatives, I think, is going to be very important. Um, and that's the number one feature that needs to be taken into account. And most of the other solutions for the rollup stacks were not designed with CK in mind, and with knowing that CK VMs are going to be the way moving forward. So it's not easy to modify them or trying to catch up with all of this. The only one that is moving fast in terms of adopting all of this is OP Stack, but it still doesn't work like a fully CK rollup. I don't think it supports state dips, for example. Like it works like an optimistic rollup, but instead of but adding Breath plus SP1 in order for proving the execution. So I think we will have a different offering that without all of this step, because we started from zero and knowing that this is the right solution. So we'll see what happens. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mauro, but I think they don't have they post the full blogs, right? It's not state diffs if you use them.
I will need to double check. I'm not sure.
Okay. I think that was a good summary of everything, and something that we have been talking with Mauro and Diego in the live streams. I think is important to reinforce is that for those who are curious, the main thing people are improving is the amount of commitments they make while proving. So all of these teams are working on different solutions and techniques, and that's what's happening. And as Diego mentioned, everyone is converging to the same to the same type of solution because everyone is realizing that the technique that someone else did is good, and all of these projects will kind of use the same thing. At some point, we will have an equilibrium. I don't know when, uh, but things are moving really fast, so I think that's exciting.
Yeah, doing a little bit of history the other day because I was looking at the papers and everything. I saw that the idea of Starks was really uh, even in something like 2005. I think
What?
like reading one of Ellie's like old papers, you have like the idea. It's not like fully complete, but he has the idea of using Reed Solomon codes to build something and then try to prove proximity to a Reed Solomon code as a way of like enforcing constraints. But it took like a lot of time. I think that, of course, blockchain provided like the key application, and that helped like accelerate everything. Because if you look until 2014, you didn't have like much progress. As you say, at that time you got Pinocchio. Maybe Pinocchio unlocked lots of things, but at the same time having uh, this place where you have a concrete application that has an impact on the real world and which you can use to build uh, the future of finance had like accelerate this a lot. So from these ideas you have maybe in 2005, GKR is more or less a bit later, but 3 years later. It's crazy how things have accelerated, and at least since 2019, 20, with the paper with of Starks and Plonk, it's gone like way faster. So I don't know. I think this shows the importance of um, collaboration, doing things open source, and giving like meaningful discussions.
100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, crypto just providing incentives so things go faster.
Yeah. How was stablecoin, RJ?
Um, it was really good. It was an interesting conference because it's not the normal crypto crowd. I didn't saw many people who seem familiar. Um, I will categorize three main profile of people. One of them was bankers. A lot of banks from the US and other places actually wants to launch their stablecoins. That is the supply. That means probably the supply of stablecoins is going to grow a lot, and not only USDC and USDT growing, it's like new different kind of stablecoins getting to the market. And on the demand side, what I saw is primarily emerging markets were really active during the conference. A lot of people building startups in Africa and Latin America using stablecoins for B2B and B2C. What I mean is some people helping companies do payments internationally using stablecoins, others helping people get paid and moving money cross borders using stablecoins. And the interesting thing is that all of them are growing a lot. Like every single one of these companies that I talk to that are in emerging markets are growing. They are not businesses that are very technical in terms of their teams, just use the tech. Um, and the main issues they're having are some they need more liquidity on some stuff in order to offer better pricing. But at some point they will need to scale the infrastructure because they're having a lot of demand. And it's not only one company, it's multiple companies. So in my opinion, that clearly won't fit in one chain. And they're using many chains, they don't care. Like the only thing they want is something that can be easily used by their users and move money between places. But they do care about liquidity, and liquidity, the main place for liquidity in crypto is still Ethereum. So they are using Ethereum a lot and different altcoins. So I thought that was very exciting and interesting. Um, and they care about different stuff. They are not in crypto Twitter. They live in their own world. I met a lot of them. I will follow up with many of them. I think there's a lot of things to learn, and there are a lot of things that we can do in order to help them. So I think it was very exciting. Um, Primarily, some of these startups from Africa, I think, were the most interesting ones for sure. And then I saw people from Stripe, Bridge, the company bought by Stripe, and there was an engineer from Apple, like a lot of people from the US, but they were more like, well, Bridge is growing a lot, so they were doing BD and trying to get more customers. But the other ones were just trying to understand what's happening. While these companies from Africa and Latin America were there to solve problems they already have and trying to get do businesses with others in order to solve pricing problems and liquidity issues they're having. Um, I think it was very interesting, and I will probably share with the team a few talks once they upload everything. And there's a very interesting report that I think everyone should read from Artemis, the data company in crypto, where they did like with different companies from the ecosystem, in-depth report on the stablecoin usage. And they grab companies that did KYC and KYB on their users. So the data they have is only from, like they know it's actual human beings on the other side. That KYC and KYB, so they're using it for actual businesses and not use cases that they cannot identify. And I think it's a super interesting report that it shows that Ethereum and Tron are the biggest places for stablecoins by far. And also something that I think we already knew, but I think seeing it in numbers is different, is that the business that is growing the fastest in crypto is the crypto cards. There's $1.1 billion per month of people that have stablecoins and use the crypto-backed cards. We know this because we come from Latin America, and many people that we know, I mean, I use Moonwell, for example, every single day. Um, and I think seeing the number is different than having the hunch that is big because you know a lot of people that use it. It's still not a very big number, but $1.1 billion of volume behind this shows that it's growing a lot. And it also, they have very important data that the business of crypto cards is way stickier than any other business in crypto. Meaning, if you have users who spend with your card, they are less likely to move than if you have a DEX or like a perp kind of trading venue or lending or whatever. Um, so it's easier to have your customer base grow without having to worry that they will move to somewhere else. I don't know why exactly that's the case, but that's something they show with data.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a matter of like uh custom, or like you see that something works and it solves your problem,
Oh,
so
yeah,
why bother with another solution? I don't know, unless
exactly.
somebody had like a significant advantage over the other, like offering like lower fees, but significantly lower fees or something. If you try it, you see it works and everything. I think we are seeing that maybe more ordinary users, or users without that technical experience, they have that, it solves the problem. Why bother? Um,
Yeah, I think it's also the case that the other use cases in crypto are related a lot with speculation and trading. And the user, if you get people in your system that are just there for trading and speculation, that means they will move somewhere else if you offer them better incentives because they are there to make money. So they want, for example, a new token, they want a new airdrop. So they are constantly moving between all of these venues because they're new and they have like a better opportunity. Well, that's not the case when you want to spend your money for paying a coffee. What you want is convenience
yeah.
and having a brand that you trust. So it's way more similar to other products in Web2 and normal businesses. So I think that's great. I'm really excited about all of that. Um, I'm going to try to create like a summary of the most important things I saw. I put it a tweet the other day. I think we saw the last decade, a little more than a decade, like the first phase of crypto, that it was like internet native trading, an exchange of value that was with Bitcoin and exchanges. The first wave of stablecoins was 100% directly with the need and the demand of having dollars globally access so you can trade. I think we'll see a huge wave of new stablecoins that will put dollars on these public ledgers, that they will do all the onboarding, but it will be related to real economy kind of strategy. Like Tether was on a race of putting more dollars so you can trade more. and it solved an issue for exchanges because exchange, like I don't know if everyone knows the story about USDT, but it was born to solve a problem for exchanges. Exchanges couldn't have pairs like globally access for Bitcoin and another asset, so they created Tether to offer that. I mean, that's why it was born out of Bitfinex. And I think the next stablecoins are going to be born to solve issues for people who want to put their dollars on chain, but they need to do payments, they need to access liquidity for lending or for saving. Um, and that's why I also think USDC has not been able to compete with USDT in a big kind of a scenario because they were fighting for the same type of user. And all of these stablecoins have a new opportunity that is bringing new users. So that's my thesis, and I think all of that needs a lot of new infrastructure, and I think what we're building will help. Specifically when things are super easy to use and safe. So overall, super interesting talk, conference, completely different crowd from what we're used to. And I will try to be on the next one next year, or if they do another one this year, I will try to be there. It was very useful. And I recommend everyone to check out the talks and try to understand what people are building. Completely different crowd. I think we covered everything, guys. I don't know if you want to mention anything else. No? Okay.
Uh,
So thank you everyone for joining. We had over 400 people. Uh, that's a lot. And we'll see you next Monday. Then, yeah, we'll share more updates and you will be able to see the engineering update blog pretty soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.